All right, fire 'em up!
I had to wear this shirt today to do this review. Used to belong to my mom before she passed away. She would have really liked this new Superman movie. Growing up and for the longest time after that, I always assumed in my mind that Superman was just such a boring character. I mean, how do you write a story about a character that is pretty much invulnerable to everything except a small green rock and the occasional magic user? But I come to realize over the years that it's not the character that's boring, it's how people write them. And thankfully we found somebody when James Gunn who knows how to write a character such as Superman. So this Superman movie is not a reboot of Superman in general, but it is also a reboot to the DCU. So the fact that we got so many characters in it, that's pretty much what it was for. It was to set up everything from the DCU going forward, even though particularly this actually isn't the reboot to the DCU or going from the DCEU to the DCU. I mean, we had Creature Commandos and Peacemaker who are a part of this same universe. So we've already seen the DCU actually start out, but I guess you can just call this the ceremonial ribbon cutting and those other ones were the soft opening. Either way, it's a good way to start. Superman is written and directed by James Gunn, and it stars David Corenswet as our title character, and also Rachel Brosnahan as, in my opinion, the best version of Lois Lane we've seen since, I would say, since the Christopher Reeves era. I mean, I love the fact that she is very straightforward. She is all about her job. She goes after everybody. She just wants the truth and to do the story properly. And honestly, in a story that is about an alien that crash lands on Earth and is raised as a human and has these extraordinary powers, the fact that she is part of the media and is only looking for the truth, that's probably the most unbelievable thing about this entire film. And you have to hand it to the rest of the cast. Everybody fits their character, but everybody has their own little thing within the film and within the structure of the film, and they all feel very nuanced and very full. The only problem, honestly, with the character work is I don't think we got enough of Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific. I honestly wish we would have had more of him, and not just because he's a black character, but if you understand what his character is and how he interacts a lot of the times with Clark, with Superman, I think if we would have had a little bit more of that, I think it would have fleshed out this movie a hell of a lot more. I mean, yeah, we got that after credit scene, which I won't spoil for you, but I think there should have been more of what was in that after credit scene and more of what we've seen in the likes of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and some of the animated DC films of the past. I think if we've got just a little bit more of that, I think that would have made his Mr. Terrific a hell of a lot more palatable for a lot of people, because I know for a fact there are tons of people. I would say out of every 10 people that watch this movie, I would say 7 have no idea who Mr. Terrific is and what he's actually capable of. Because honestly, what was on the screen, it's only a minuscule thing of what Mr. Terrific is capable of. And honestly, I can't wait till they actually spin off and give him his own film, or maybe even a short miniseries. And I guarantee you that they will, because his character is terrific and everything that he does within the Justice League is totally awesome. And you also got to give a shout out to Nathan Fillion playing Guy Gardner. I tried to tell people, if you know nothing of Green Lanterns, all you need to know about Guy Gardner is that he's an a-hole. He is very arrogant, but his character is really, really good. He pushes hard. He is all about fighting alongside his friends. And I thought this was a really good pick, because Nathan Fillion, especially if you go back to his days on Firefly and playing Captain Malcolm Reynolds, he knows how to do this. I honestly didn't think that they would have him as Guy Gardner. I thought maybe he'd be Hal Jordan, but him as Guy Gardner is still really good. I'm kind of disappointed with Isabella Merced's Hawkgirl. Not that she's bad, but I don't think the script gave her enough to show off what she's there for. Because honestly, watching her on the screen in the film, it's like, okay, she has a mace and she flies. What else is she there for? Also, the beating heart of the cast is Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. I'm sorry, this is probably the best Lex Luthor I've seen since Michael Rosenbaum in Smallville. This is not to shoot down Gene Hackman in the OG series in the Christopher Reeve movies, but within Smallville, Michael Rosenbaum was menacing, but at the same time, he had heart, he had character, he had depth. You understood his motivations. Nicholas Hoult is that and a little bit more. That man can act anything. You just look at his IMDb and see the things he's been in, and I guarantee you'll be like, oh, yeah, he actually can act. The only thing I didn't like about his character is, much like Hawkgirl, the script does not give him a whole lot to do. I don't think he is as menacing as he should be as Lex Luthor, even though he was, but his genius does pop a lot, and I love the fact that he has that little scene where he's standing there looking at his well done bad work, and he has that little smirk on his face. I'm like, that is real Lex Luthor. That is something we probably would have saw in Justice League or Justice League Unlimited, and I actually absolutely love that. For me, he wasn't I would say him and David Corenswet is probably going back and forth for playing the best part within the movie, but overall, I think he's the beating heart of it. He makes everything around him work a hell of a lot better than what the script called for. But of course, the biggest criticism for this film is biggest criticism for any movie that is written and directed by James Gunn. It's misplaced humor. Now, there's nothing wrong with the humor in it. I am not angry that Superman has this little spots where he tells jokes or has these little asides where he says something funny or does something kind of quirky. That's what he is. We don't call him the Boy Scout for nothing. Yes, that's one of his nicknames. This is who Superman is. David Corenswet plays Superman about as well as I've ever seen. And honestly, watching him play Superman, it reminds me a ton of Christopher Reeves. There have been other good Supermen along the way. I loved Henry Cavill. I thought his Superman was very underrated. We've seen good Supermans along the way. Even Taylor Hoechlin, who a whole lot of people just didn't like. But we've seen this type of Superman before, and it was Christopher Reeves. And that, to me, still in my world, Christopher Reeves is the gold standard for Superman. But, and this is a big but, we're starting to see David Corenswet start moving up that chain to being something like Christopher Reeves. But yeah, a lot of the humor is misplaced, and that's not the actor's problem. That is a James Gunn thing. Now, like I said, there's nothing wrong with the humor. I just think it's a bit misplaced. There are times within a film where the humor is okay, but a lot of the times that we do get humor in this film, it's right in the middle of when the drama and the gravity of the situation just needs to just be that, and there's no humor whatsoever, but then there's a joke thrown in, and I get why James Gunn does that. That's kind of his thing. If you go back to Guardians of the Galaxy, which is probably why the Justice Gang works so well in this film, is because that's kind of his wheelhouse, but the comedy doesn't always need to be there. You have Guy Gardner to be the comedic center of the film, so when he's on the screen, it's fine. When he's not there, there's no really need to have a joke, but unfortunately, a lot of them don't land, and they are very much misplaced. What's also missing from this film is a good amount of smooth use to CGI. Now, the CGI isn't terrible. Believe me, I've seen terrible CGI. This does not belong in that category. But a lot of the CGI within this film, you are looking at it and it's like, that's not just obvious CGI. It's obvious and bad. Now, yes, we know none of these people can actually fly. We know for a fact nobody is throwing people all over the place and taking punches from some superpowered alien and living to tell the tale and coming right back. We get that. We understand why that the dog actually isn't flying. We know that this is CGI. We get it. But there are points, like I said, where the CGI is just unfathomably bad. Take, for example, when Lex is walking in and through the Fortress of Solitude, and robots are being cut in half just a few inches from his face, and sparks are flying by him, but he doesn't flinch. It's a bad look. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with the CGI. It isn't terrible, but there are spots within the movie where the CGI should have been done better. And I can't just sit back and say, well, we'll just blow past that. Sometimes you can overlook things because they're small, but a lot of the times when the CGI is bad in this, it's glaring and it really takes you out of the film. I also wish that we got a little bit more of Clark Kent within this film. Yes, I get it. That wig that he had on his head was terrible. That's a whole different story. We'll talk about that in some other time if we feel like it. But for me, I wanted to see Superman and I wanted to see Clark Kent. We got a good amount of both, but I think we needed to see a little bit more of Clark Kent. See how he interacts, not just with Lois Lane, but how he interacts with everybody else around him, including his parents back on the farm. We needed a little bit more of that. And I think within the realm of superhero movies, the fact that he still has a secret identity, that plays in the face and up against everything else we've seen thus far. Most of these people that are playing superheroes up until this film, they don't have secret identities. Everybody knows who they are, but Clark still holds on to his. Nobody knows that Clark is Superman. Obviously, yes, Lois knows in this particular case, just like she does in the comics, but most everybody else on the planet does not know. So the fact that they decided to go with that, in lieu of saying, well, he doesn't have a secret identity, pretty much everybody knows, like they do with other comic book characters in other comic book movies, we needed to see more of his interaction as Clark Kent with everybody else. I think the Brendan Routh film, when he played Superman, we got a little bit too much of Clark Kent and not enough of Superman. And I think this one, we got a whole lot of Superman and just not enough of Clark Kent. Honestly, it's not terrible, but I still believe that we should have had just a little bit more. Overall, for me, this was an 8 out of 10, and I know that's kind of high considering the criticisms that I have, but I'm throwing in the fact that this is a new Superman for a new generation of people who haven't had their own Superman movie. And yes, I get it, we had Taylor Hoechlin on TV, but if he's not on the big screen, I think a whole lot of people tend to ignore Superman in that particular case. But this is for everybody else going forward. This is for the DCU. This isn't DCEU. And yes, I know you all love Henry Cavill. I thought Henry Cavill was absolutely awesome. Overall, this is still such a really good, really fun film. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I know with the criticisms I had, it might have been a little bit lower. But for me, just watching Superman on screen, just watching David Corenswet be the Superman that I remember from as a kid when I started to really get into the character. Yes, this isn't Snyder. Yes, this isn't Christopher Reeves. But this is still very much out of comic book lore. This is Silver Age Superman. This is All-Star Superman. This is Superman versus monsters and occasionally against Lex Luthor and his machinations and his team of bad guys trying to take him down simply because Lex is just very arrogant and very unsure of himself being around a guy like Superman because he himself doesn't have powers. This is the Lex Luthor we all grew up with from the Gene Hackman days all the way up until now through Michael Rosenbaum. This is the Superman that we had with Christopher Reeves. This is the beginning, and I'm not saying that he's equal to that, but this is what it would look like if they started those particular movies over again. I absolutely enjoyed myself sitting in the theater. I watched it twice. I went out of the theater like, you know what, that was a really good movie. I can do a review on it and say why I like it, even though I do have criticisms of it. And I turned right back around the next day and went and saw it again. I absolutely enjoyed this movie sitting there, and this may actually become my absolute favorite summer movie for 2025. But those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you thought of it if you saw it. And if you haven't seen it, are you actually going to go see it? And as a matter of fact, get in the comments and tell me who is your favorite Superman if you've seen any of them. For me, like I said, Christopher Reeves will always be my absolute favorite. It is the one I grew up on. It is the one that made me love superheroes even a little bit more. He was the one that whenever I think of Superman, I think of specifically him with a little bit of what you got out of Justice League thrown in. But those are just my thoughts. I want to know yours in the comments. That's all we got for this review. We'll catch you on the next one. And we shall end this video the same way we end our videos. God bless. I love you and peace. See you next time.